Hey, everybody. Remember, if you're a fan of the Tennessee Volunteers or just sports in general, please like, comment, and subscribe. Any and all support's greatly appreciated. Now, let's get to the video. Hey, guys. How's it going? Happy Sunday. Hope you're all doing well. Wanted to make this video and switch up the style of video that I normally make. So, as many of you know, I'm a Tennessee-centric channel. And it will remain that way for the foreseeable future. However, yesterday was just such an electric day for basketball that I wanted to expand a little bit, not just talk about the huge win that my team, Tennessee, had, but also highlight some of the other notable games that happened and the implications, because those implications are huge for my team, for your team, as March slowly March is closer. It'll be here in less than a week. So just leading it off from the top, Tennessee traveled out to Nashville yesterday. Short-handed, J.P. Estrella's now missed 2 straight games. Went into a pretty hostile environment there in the Coliseum. Jalen Carey started in J.P. Estrella's place. For those of you who may not know, Jalen Carey is a former Vanderbilt player. So, of course, the tensions were quite high. There was a lot of intensity and emotion throughout that game. And really, from tip to finish, this game could have went either way. As much as it pains me, I certainly have to give kudos to Vanderbilt. They've got a great team, a great coach. It's such an odd thing to say, but the layout of their gym makes the game all the more interesting and frustrating, I think, for opposing teams. But throughout the game, it was neck and neck, right? Nate Emmett didn't necessarily have the best game of his career. Jacoby Gillespie struggled a little bit, but as always, carried the weight. But all in all, at the end of the day, Tennessee was able to pull it out, and I wanted to quickly recap this. So some notable things here. If we take a look again, one of our more close rebounding differential games. It's not uncommon to see Tennessee plus double digits, even creeping into plus 20 plus in rebounding. So Vanderbilt was very ferocious on the boards. They also, both of us were pretty efficient from the free throw line. And like I said, if you watch this game, it was like watching 2 boxers go back and forth. They would take the lead. We would take the lead. Momentum shifts and swings were constant throughout the game. However, the defining moment came in the last minute 20, where Bishop Boswell, who I've been singing his praises the entire season, made a clutch 15-foot shot. We got to stop. Nate Emmett comes down. He's trapped about 10 feet away from the basket. He's pivoting on his pivot foot. Has about 5 seconds left on the shot clock. We're down by 1. There's like 52 seconds to go. What does he do? Shoots a fadeaway that goes directly into the hoop. And from there, Tennessee was able to get some crucial rebounds, a couple of stops, and that was the difference in the game. I wish I could sit here and talk about how Tennessee just dominated Vanderbilt, but that was not the case. These were 2 very evenly matched teams throughout the course of the afternoon, and Tennessee was able to pull away at the very end. That does set up an electric showdown in Knoxville on March 7th, where, there could be some real SEC tournament implications, as well as NCAA tournament implications. Right now, they had a mock committee that met, and Vanderbilt was on the 4 line. It was like the 15th best team in the nation. If Tennessee can find a way to win out, and if Vanderbilt stumbles a couple of more times, there's a very real world where that shifts, and that would be huge for us. So kudos to the Vols. Also, kudos to Vanderbilt for a great environment and a great game. But don't forget your little brother, and you always will be. 15 of 17 of the last game of the last times we've met have been a Tennessee victory. Moving on, another game that I did not see the favorite dropping was Kansas the Bobcats. So, or Bearcats, not the Bobcats. The reason I'm highlighting this game is, one, it's a huge upset. You don't go into Kansas's place often and win, so kudos to Cincinnati for doing so. Also, kudos to Wes Miller, the coach. I remember he was somewhat of a meme on the internet a couple of weeks ago when they had a loss, and he went out to the fans and he said, "Listen, I'm upset too. You have every right to be mad." I thought that was good to see from a head coach, seeing that type of passion. But the real storyline here is, of course, let's scroll down, Darren Peterson. This is a game where he actually played most of the game, believe it or not. Given his track record, that's a little bit, shocking. But there's a lot of chatter now, not just, and I saw this, kudos to the Field of 68 for bringing this up. This is one of the first times that it feels like this loss is a repercussion of what has been adopted as a national media talking point. You've got Stephen A. Smith talking about Peterson. You've got Kendrick Perkins. You've got all these different people outside of just the realm of basketball that have now shifted all of their attention, Charles Barkley, onto him. And they're being incredibly critical. And for what it's worth, I believe they have every right to be critical of his performance, him riding the bench, of coming up with all of these reasons. And I'm just going to say it, excuses as to why he cannot play. Load management in college, what a load of horse crap that is. But that's exactly what he's doing to try and protect his draft stock. Bill Self was even talking about, before the game, like, if Darren wants to silence the crowd, just play the entire game. It's crazy to me that you as a head coach have to say that about your star player to motivate him. There's so many other players in this upcoming draft, like Darius Acuff, Nate Ament, Boozer, AJ DeMansa, these players that literally bleed for their university, that they love their university, and it's going to take an act of God for them not to play. And then you've got Darren Peterson. And I do wonder if this is causing the team's dynamic to shift in a negative way. Now, this is not to take away from Cincinnati, because kudos to them, but it is something that's very top of mind for me, and it'll be something that we need to keep an eye out in the coming weeks, especially as March gets closer. After that win against, Arizona, people started whispering, is this team better without Darren Peterson? I'm not going to go that far, but I do wonder about the psychological impact and chemistry issues that he can present inside of the locker room. Moving on, this is very realistically a look at the potential national championship matchup for the upcoming year. Just two Titans, similar to the Tennessee and Vanderbilt game, into where really it was neck and neck throughout the entire game, and really any shift of momentum could have tipped it either way for either team. So it feels as though that they are pretty neck and neck in terms of skill. But what I do want to point out here is, again, Cam Boozer is just an unreal player and just unreally talented. His composure when the spotlights are bright. This was a hugely talked about game. There was a big to-do about the ticket prices, where it was being in DC, the crowd that was there. It would be very easy for him to have shrunk from the moment, but no, instead he had crucial points, crucial free throws, rebounds. The guy was close to a triple-double, blocks. As a Tennessee fan, I didn't get to see him in person, but we certainly saw the exhibition game before the season started against Tennessee. And I just remember it was like, he looks like a 28-year-old NBA player, just going out there getting rebounds, out out physicaling every other competitor. And at this time, I know Duke's had a couple of losses now, which is just crazy. Only 2 losses and people being critical. One of those against North Carolina in a pretty disheartening fashion with the comeback. But at this time, to me, Duke has to be the national championship favorite. I mean, again, Lindenborg came out and had a good game as well. Michigan is still an incredibly good team, and who's to say what may happen if they meet again in March when the game is on the line. But these were 2 teams that played with all of their heart and all of their focus, and it was an amazing game to watch. One of the best games I've got to watch this year, and that's saying a lot because there's been a lot of terrific games so far this year. And then lastly, a matchup between 2 of the closer to the bottom half of the teams in the SEC, and that's no slight to Kentucky or Auburn. But the reason I wanted to highlight this, and we won't spend a ton of time, again, this was a gritty, ugly game. A lot of silly turnovers, a lot of swings in momentum. Seemingly, at the end of the game, Kentucky had salted it away, was up by a point, had an opportunity to inbound the ball, and get fouled, and then it'd be a free throw off. So who knows what would have happened at that point? We would see. But the Kentucky got called for an offensive foul, which resulted in shortening it. Was the swing and momentum that was needed for Auburn to then take the lead, maintain the lead, and ultimately win. And I'm just going to say it, as a Tennessee fan, no part of my body ever wants to compliment Kentucky. However, that call at the end of the game robbed Kentucky of a win. Kentucky was robbed. And Mark Pope mentioned that at the end of the tournament in a roundabout kind of funny way. He says, I'm not going to speak about the officials because I can't, which I think is bullcrap. Not from Mark Pope, but I do think these officials should be able to speak about, these coaches should be able to speak about what they saw happen in the game. But as he's walking out the hallway, you hear him talking to the AD, and he's saying, if those ill-methers try to say I spoke about them, how they cheated us out of a win, I didn't, which is his way of saying once he's off the podium, yeah, they cheated us out of a win. And as an objective viewer who doesn't particularly care for either teams, I certainly thought that they were cheated out of that win as well. It puts Kentucky in a very precarious situation, right? They're not quite a bubble team that I would say, but they do have a very tough remaining schedule. And, the one thing you don't want to have, and we'll actually click into their team profile here, is they are on a bit of a losing streak. Now, they should get back into the win column upcoming against South Carolina. No offense to South Carolina, but I don't foresee that being an issue for them. But then to close out at Vanderbilt versus Vanderbilt at Texas A&M and against Florida, that is not a schedule that I would like to have. That's really going to try this team. We'll see what ends up happening, but certainly Kentucky was robbed. So again, guys, hope you like the new style of the video. A ton of great games throughout the day yesterday. We're getting into it. The dog days of February is almost over. Meaningful basketball has been ongoing, but we're creeping ever closer to March Madness. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Did I miss out on any other huge games that you would have spoke about? Is there anything that jumps out at you? I would love to hear your thoughts and feedbacks. Okay? Hope y'all have a great Sunday. Thanks again for stopping in today. And remember, if you like this content, I can't ask enough. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Any and all support's greatly appreciated. And as always, go Vols!